I would also like to express my sincere thanks, and I wish you a fruitful webinar. Thank you for your attention. I hope you all will earn the benefit of this presentation today. Without further ado, let me walk you through the presentation. Okay, can you all see the slides?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council, MPOCC. You can see two wording there, one, MPOCC and MSPO. MPOCC is the scheme owner of the MSPO standard. MSPO stands for Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil. And we are the governance body for the MSPO standard. What is the difference here? You can see one part of the world is the devastated world, and the other one is green. So what caused the devastated world? Global warming. And what are the causes? The causes are open waste disposal, open burning, deforestation, and pollution. So if you have causes and you have the effects, and these are the effects on global warming, on biodiversity, you have increase of temperatures and climate disorders, disturb the ecosystems, modify the conditions and cycles of plant reproduction, and scarcity of resources and climate change changes the life habits and migratory cycles of animals. On humans, climate change affects the global economy. It is already shaking up social, health, and geopolitical balances in many parts of the world. The scarcity of resources like food and energy gives rise to new conflicts. On the weather, the impact on weather phenomena is huge, such as more droughts and heat waves, more precipitations, more natural disasters like floods, hurricanes, storms, and wildfires, frost-free seasons, and etc. Here's the video. It will take about 7 to 8 minutes. I just want to give you the rough idea how it's happening, so that when I go through after this video, the slides, you will be able to understand further.
This is Earth, the planet in our solar system.
I just want to check, are you able to hear the sound?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That we live on. However, our planet is not on a good path for continuing to sustain life. The Earth is facing the accelerating detrimental effect of climate change, also referred to as global warming. Well, what exactly is climate change? Climate change is defined as a long-term change in the Earth's overall temperature with massive and permanent ramifications. Climate scientists believe that this isn't caused naturally by the Earth, but by human activity. Earth's atmosphere consists of gases such as oxygen and nitrogen, and other gases known as greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane. Incoming light from the sun hits the Earth's surface. The Earth absorbs some of that energy, heating the surface of the planet. The rest of that energy gets reflected. Some of that energy goes back out into space, but greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide trap the energy and send it right back to the Earth's surface, heating it up even more. This is known as the greenhouse effect. Now, a little greenhouse effect is natural to the Earth and is a good thing to have, but a large greenhouse effect can be catastrophic, causing a lot of that energy to stay in our atmosphere and heat up the Earth at an accelerating rate. Some of the main human activity that emits greenhouse gases are fossil fuel burning, animals, agriculture, and deforestation, and waste and recycle pollution. Burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas, as well as gasoline, are some of the largest pollutants of carbon emissions. Not only that, but when fossil fuels are burnt and their gases mix with heat, they create smog, a thick air pollutant that is highly toxic. For example, Beijing smog is so thick and heavy that you can't go outside without some form of surgical mask or breathing filter. The massive amounts of excrement produced by livestock farms emit toxic gases such as hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, and methane into the air. Methane is 23 times more effective at trapping heat than CO2, and roughly 80% of these emissions in the US come from animal waste. Over 56 billion animals are globally raised every year for food purposes. That's 8 times more than the human population, and 8 times as much waste adding emissions to our atmosphere. Land used for growing animal feed and raising animals for food used a staggering 30% of the Earth's landmass in 2006, and the food production industry has only increased since. 7 football fields worth of land is bulldozed every minute to create more room for farmed animals and the crops that feed them. Bulldozing land and deforestation not only emits greenhouse gases, but it gets rid of plants, trees, and forests, the things on our planet that actually absorb carbon dioxide. The more we deforest our Earth, the less carbon dioxide it can absorb from our atmosphere. Solid waste landfills are some of the largest pollutants of methane gas in the United States. The average person produces 4.3 pounds of trash per day. That's 1,569 pounds of trash per year for one person. With the 7+ billion people that live on the globe, that's 11.6 trillion pounds of trash dumped into landfills every year. But how do we know that our human activity is the cause of accelerated climate change and not the Earth's natural process? Our civilizations produced a devastating 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide last year, which equals 700 trillion cubic feet of CO2. That's a little more than 100 Mount Everests of CO2. It's enough CO2 to fill the entire Grand Canyon 5 times. Or it's the equivalent of 19 million Empire State Buildings. The largest natural pollutant of the Earth are volcanoes. If we take the largest scientific estimate of carbon emissions produced by volcanoes every year, that's 500 million tons of volcanic CO2. But that's not even 2% of the nearly 40 billion tons of CO2 that our civilizations produced. Over the course of thousands of years, our climate goes through a natural climate cycle of carbon dioxide being absorbed and released into the atmosphere. But once the Industrial Revolution kicked in, burning fossil fuels became the necessity of manufacture and production plants, and the CO2 level shot up violently and have not slowed down since. The Earth has not seen this much carbon dioxide in its atmosphere for millions of years. Our planet with the greenhouse effect is like a bathtub being filled with more water than it can drain. Eventually, it will fill up with more than it can handle. But why should we care about global warming and climate increasing? The Earth's temperature has risen 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit over the past century and is projected to rise another 0.5 to 8.6 degrees Fahrenheit over the next 100 years. Animals and plant life are struggling to adapt to these conditions for survival. If even one species goes extinct, it can create a domino effect with the food chain. No living plants or animals means no living humans. Rising temperatures makes the Earth's oceans become warmer, which causes something known as ocean acidification, which rises the acid levels in the oceans from the carbon dioxide reacting with the salt water. Ocean acidification harms animal life and is what's causing the death of the Great Barrier Reef. This is a problem because about 1 billion people use ocean life as their main source of protein. Since the oceans are becoming warmer, the polar ice caps are melting, which has caused almost 65% of the polar ice caps to melt since 1979. The Earth loses on average 400 billion tons of ice each year. That's like a giant block of ice 4 miles long on each side, 64 cubic miles, that melts and is added to the ocean. The oceans fill with too much water, and the shores, like in Louisiana, can't hold all that water, and coastal regions get flooded and destroyed. Climate change also causes more frequent and intense natural disasters such as hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, heat waves, and droughts. So the question is, how do we stop this? Instead of burning fossil fuels, we need to convert to renewable energy such as solar and wind power, which emit zero carbon emissions when operating. Energy from the sun and the wind are infinite. Unlike fossil fuels, we will never run out of them. More solar energy falls on the Earth in 1 hour than all the energy that our civilizations consume in 1 year. Civil engineers from the Solutions Project calculated that we could power most of the world with only renewable energy if we just actually decided to do it. If we cut back on deforestation, not only does that reduce the amount of fossil fuels burned, but there will be more plants and forests actively absorbing carbon dioxide. If we use more reusable and renewable resources, this will reduce the amount of energy needed to create new products. This will also reduce the massive amount of landfill dumping that we do. That all sounds like great, efficient, and healthy ideas, but how can I help personally right now? You can drive an electric or fuel-efficient car. Replacing your regular car with a Toyota Prius, the average person can prevent the emission of about 1 ton of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now, we all can't afford to just buy new and different cars. So to help, you can walk or bike places, take public transportation, or if anything, ease off the accelerator and make your car as efficient as possible. Use energy-efficient light bulbs. LED light bulbs use only a fraction of the power of incandescent light bulbs. Air dry your clothes instead of using power-guzzling machines like dryers. Turn off electronics or lights when you're not using them. Eat less meat or no meat at all. By replacing an omnivorous diet with a vegan diet, the average person can prevent the emission of about 1.5 tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. Reduce, reuse, recycle. And of course, spread your knowledge and concerns of climate change. Remember, climate change is very real and is drastically affecting planet Earth, our home. And although we are the problem, we can also be the solution.
All right, thank you. So how to curb these issues? How do we address? So this is what I'm going to present today and how we address through MSPO. A little bit of background of introduction of ISO. The ISO stands for International Organization for Standardization. It's an independent, non-governmental organization that set international standards related to products and recognize the standard as the most reliable. Their standards offer solutions and best practice for almost all types of technology and business, helping companies and organizations to increase performance while protecting consumers and the planet. Founded on 23rd February 1947, this standard is also audited by an independent certification body to further strengthen its recognition globally. The importance of ISO standard: to ensure products and services are safe, reliable, and quality, increase the revenue, improvement of credibility, higher operating efficiency, measure and improve an organization's quality, environmental, and health and safety impact, safeguard consumers and the end users. The popular standards developed by ISO. So ISO 9001, which is the quality management system, and you have 14001 environmental management system, and we have 45001 occupational health and safety, and 22,000 food management system, and 27,001 for information security management. Note, some of these ISO standards are incorporated into Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil Standard. The way forward of standard. Accreditation and certification. What is accreditation and certification? Accreditation body. It's a body like a police who is watching and licensing the certification body. The certification body, CB, is the one who will do the audit on the field and issue the certificates for the entity. So the accreditation here, license provided to certification body to be able to perform certification audits to issue the certificate. There is usually only one accreditation body for each country, but depending on the scheme owner, they can actually sign a few others CB as well internationally. And the certification is issued, the certificate issued to a company by certification body stating that a company or organization is compliant with a standard. In this case, is MSPO. So introduction of certification. A procedure by which a third party provides written assurance that a product, process, or service along the supply chain confirms with certain standards. It can be ISO 9001, it can be MSPO. Certification can be seen as a form of communication along the supply chain. The certificate demonstrates to the buyer that the supplier complies with certain standards, which might be more convincing than if the supplier itself provided the assurance. The organization performing the certification is called a certification body or certifier. The certification body might do the actual inspection or contract the inspection out to an inspector or inspection body. In this case, we call it as freelancer. The certification decision, example, the granting of the return assurance or certificate, is based on the inspection report, possibly complemented by other information sources. Palm oil sustainability commitment. Palm oil sustainability certification. In the context of palm oil production, plantations or milling, refinery companies having been certified means that their products are sustainably produced and they have undertaken the necessary actions to minimize any negative environmental and social impacts. Sustainability certification schemes were introduced to the palm oil industry as a response to address the negative environmental and social impact associated with the development of this industry. One of the most well-known is the Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil, MSPO. Why is sustainability certification needed for palm oil? Social. We address the social issues, deforestation and climate change. In social, we have the employment and work conditions, child and forced labor, communal NCR land and ownership rights. In deforestation, we have biodiversity loss, conservation of high biodiversity value areas, and climate change, which on planting on peatlands, the fire, the haze, and the greenhouse gases. Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil Overview. MSPO is a national scheme in Malaysia. It was launched on 19 November 2013. It's known as MS2530 2013 series. And the standard sets the requirements and which must be met when audits are done. On 1st January 2015, MSPO scheme was executed to show its commitment towards sustainable palm oil production. And 24th February 2017, announcement of mandatory implementation. And the MSPO standard is divided into 4 parts, which is part 1 for general principle, part 2 for independent smallholders, part 3 for plantations and organized smallholders, and part 4 for palm oil mill. Benefits of MSPO. MSPO enhances Malaysian palm oil competitiveness and acceptance in global market, while supporting smallholders through sustainable practices, including increased productivity, promotes sustainability, economic competitiveness, traceability from source to end user, help support smallholders' income, meets demands from environmentally sensitive markets. And the MSPO Sustainability Framework is 5P. The scheme provides general principles for the production of sustainable palm oil that covers the following: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. People, protecting the rights of employees and stakeholders. Planet, protecting the environment and reducing environmental impacts. Prosperity, best practices to ensure continuity in business. Peace, foster peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. Partnership, implement the agenda through a solid global partnership. These are the MSPO 7 principles, and the MSPO Sustainability Framework interconnected, and the principle 1 is on management, commitment, and responsibility. Principle 2 for transparency, 3 for compliance to legal requirements, 4 for social responsibility, health, safety, and employment conditions, 5 for environment, natural resources, biodiversity, ecosystem services, 6 for best practices and development of new plantings for plantations, not applicable for palm oil. Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil commitment towards global demand. People. On principle 4, How do we address the social sustainability? Is through social responsibility, health, safety, and employment conditions. We have this requirement where the organization management shall comply with adequate employment conditions, occupational safety, and health requirements, as well as provide relevant training for its employees. The well-being of local communities shall be assessed and further developed with an avenue to address complaints and grievances. So we have social impact assessment, we have complaints and grievance to look into, commitment to contribute to local sustainable developments, employees' health and safety, employment conditions, training, and competency. So one of the international social certifications is SA1000 certification, which is social accountability, and SMETA audit, SEDEX members ethical trade audit. On environment, we have principle 5, environment, natural resources, biodiversity, and ecosystem service, which the company has to have an environmental management, energy use, waste and pollution management, water resources, and the protection of species or habitats are to be put in place by the organization management. The environmental management program, efficiency of energy use and use of renewable energy, waste management and disposal, reduction of pollution and emission, natural water resources, status of rare, threatened, and endangered species, and high biodiversity value area, and zero burning practices. Principle 7 on development of new plantings. The organization management shall implement appropriate agronomic practices for new planting to ensure that areas are not developed on disputed customary land or on areas with high biodiversity value. So we have the points of high biodiversity value, primary forest, no deforestation, for protection of nature, ecosystem services, social and cultural values, peatland, social and environmental impact assessment, soil survey, planting on steep terrain and or on marginal and fragile soils, and customary land. So international environmental certification like ISO 14001 for environmental management system, ISO 50001 energy management system, and FSC is Forest Stewardship Council. The prosperity, economic sustainability under Principle 6, best practice. The organization management shall implement standard best practice throughout its operations, implement standard best practice or as per respective company's policies, site management, economic and financial viability plan, transparent and fair pricing dealing, subcontractor, and other international economic certification like ISO 37001 is anti-bribery management system. Auditing in MSPO scheme. What is audit? It's a systematic, independent, and documented process for obtaining audit evidence and evaluating it objectively to determine the extent to which audit criteria are fulfilled. ISO. Source 19011, 2011 Auditing Management System. Principles of auditing. The auditor should have the integrity, fair presentation, due professional care, confidentiality, independence, evidence-based approach, impartiality include conflict of interest, competence, responsibility, openness, responsiveness to complaint. Types of audit. We have 3 types of audit. We have first party, second party, and third party. So first party is the internal audits were conducted by the organization itself for management review, confirm the effectiveness of the QMS or EMS or any standards, performed by employees or people representing the enterprise. Second party audit is supplier audits, which also potential external audits, conducted by parties having an interest in the organization, such as customer auditing a supplier. Third party is certification audits, external audit, conducted by independent auditing organizations, such as regulators or certification body. And MSPO actually reckon this third-party audit. MSPO auditors competency criteria. So you have post-secondary education, college, university diploma and degree in agriculture, science and technology, engineering, energy business management system, or other relevant fields. And the work experience for post-secondary education is 7 years for work experience, oil palm sector, or 5 years auditing experience in relevant accredited management system. In tertiary education, 5 years of work experience, oil palm sector, or 3 years auditing experience in relevant accredited management system. MSPO auditors competency criteria for additional for auditor is successfully completed MPOCC endorsed training and undergone 40 hours of auditor course in quality management system, and one of the following, which is environmental management system or occupational health and safety management system or integrated management system. For lead auditor, same, they have to undergo 40 hours of lead auditor course in quality management system in one of the following, which is the integrated management system, IMS, or quality management system, or environmental management system, and occupational health and safety management system. So these trainings are recognized by MSPO and MPOCC endorsed training provider. These are the institutional arrangement for MSPO certification. As I said, MPOCC is the scheme owner. It is governed by Board of Trustees, and we are in collaboration with the Standards Malaysia as a national accreditation body. Okay, and the notification of accredited CBs have to apply to scheme owner to become notified CBs to enable them to issue accredited certificates recognized by scheme owner. So in this case, the applicants, either is for supply chain certification or oil palm management certification, they have to send the application to the respective CBs, and the CB receive and process the application for certifications. And thereafter, they will conduct an audit and make decisions to award MSPO certificate for plantation or supply chain. And this must be an accredited certification bodies. So the conclusion, the MSPO standard have an ultimate aim of being credible, sustainable standards for the palm oil industry in Malaysia to bring positive social, environmental, and economic impacts while minimizing negative impacts. Malaysia is committed to producing sustainable palm oil and has in place a credible MSPO certification scheme that provides assurance to buyers and consumers of this commitment. The MSPO certification scheme provides proof of a robust management system, which enhances stakeholder confidence while improving compliance with all legal and sustainability requirements. In conclusion, MSPO standard is an effective measure to demonstrate compliance to good practices and in meeting global demand. Thank you. Q&A sessions now.
Okay, I would like to open the questions for our participants. Okay, for those who are you can write your question also as well on the chat box. So there's one questions by Dr. Nagendran. That the slides and recording of the session will be available to participants. We have to ask permission from Mr. Simon.
Yes, we can share the slides.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Any of the participants would like to know more about MPOCC? Yes, Nurul Amri, what is the differences between MSPO and RSPO. This is Amri from IPB University Indonesia.
All right, okay. The difference between MSPO and RSPO. RSPO is Roundtable Sustainable Palm Oil. MSPO is Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil. And the difference is MSPO is mandatory scheme for Malaysia, and RSPO is voluntary scheme. The MSPO is actually under the government initiative, and RSPO is a voluntary initiative.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Any more questions? You can write, or you can ask directly to Mr. Simon also, no worries.
Yes, most welcome.
So if Dr. Before that, I would like to ask Mr. Simon, so is it, if I'm not mistaken, this MSPO is compulsory, yeah, for every plantations, oil palm plantation in Malaysia?
Yes, it means
yes.
yes. For the for the plantations and mills, it was made mandatory on 1st January of 2020.
Oh, okay. What about the RSPO? Do the plantation in Malaysia need to comply also with RSPO? Because we already have MSPO.
No, it's voluntary.
Oh, okay.
No, it's voluntary. Yeah, it's voluntary scheme. It depends on the companies. But the company in Malaysia, they have to comply to MSPO. But if they want to go with RSPO also, it's their wish.
Okay, all right. Students, do you have any questions? Okay, one new message. We have two new messages. This is from Emma Hakim. Mr. Simon, is there any country, especially that also produce palm oil, that trying to collaborate with MPOCC in order to create their own sustainable palm oil standardizations?
Okay. Okay. In order to collaborate, you mean also produce palm oil that trying to collaborate with MPOCC in order to create their own sustainable? So far, no, but we have another initiative. It's called under CPOPC, which is palm oil producing countries. So they will be having their own requirements in the standards. But we also took part in the CPOPC's committee.
There's another question. How do we evaluate the success of sustainability in environment based on the MSPO standard? This is by Ileila.
How do we
evaluate the success of sustainability in environment based on the MSPO standard?
Okay. All right. When these standards are what they call is adopted by, or in this case MSPO, it's mandatory. So when these companies have to comply with this, you have certain requirements, right? So as what I have presented just now on the social aspect, environmental aspect, and the greenhouse gas, you have these indicators. Of course, when they go into the first year, we cannot be expecting them to actually overcome all the issues overnight, right? But they should have an action plan, which may comprise for the next 5 years or 3 years, is depending on the capability, financiality of the company. So based on that, we will evaluate where are they now, right? The CBs will evaluate where they are at the main assessment, right? And as years goes by, we have annual surveillance. See, we have the certificate being issued is 5 years validity, all right? So every year is subject to annual surveillance. So if we go, the auditors goes in on the first year, they will look into the whatever that they have done, or whether they able to comply, or they need some time, right? So they have these so-called action plans and all that. So when the auditors keeps on for visiting this client or the certificate holder on year-to-year basis, they can actually evaluate on the success rate, whether they are actually declining or progressing into addressing all these issues. Some of the issues may take longer time. Some of these issues can be done within a year.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Saimad. There's another two questions. I think this is by Nushamin. Do the plantation need to commit to all the 7 principles of MSPO in order to be certified?
Yes, they have to commit to all the 7 principles in order to get certified. So how the certification works when they be audited, right? If let's say we have the category of non-compliance, so you need to comply with all the 7 principles, yes, but we do have a category of non-compliance, meaning the auditor can found there is some sort of non-compliance happen, and they will be given 1 year for minor non-compliance, and 2 months, 60 days for the major non-compliance. So they have to close this non-compliance, which is known as major, and they can be certified. If this major NCs, we call it NCs, non-compliance, is still open, they are not allowed to be certified.
Okay, Mr. Aaron Spencer Leonard, he has a question. What is the relation between MSPO and green financing in the future? That's his first question. The second question is, how risk management able to help with the MSPO certifications?
Okay, the relation between MSPO and green financing in the future is MSPO has to, by complying with all these 7 principles, they can demonstrate that they are actually refraining from all these non-sustainability practices. And if that proves, yes, then the green financing will be available to them in future. So how risk management able to help with the MSPO? Risk management is actually depends on the company and how the auditors evaluating that. But in this case, the auditor have to look into where are the risks is associated with the plantation or the potential certifiable company.
Mr. Simon, there's a few questions, but I think it's not that. Just ask about Megala Loganathan. Is there any short courses? I think available or organized by MPOCC with a reasonable price.
Okay. We actually appointed an ETP, endorsed training provider. They'll be giving the price for the lead auditor course and auditor course. It will take about 5 days for lead auditors and 3 days for auditors. It will be somewhere around 3 to 5K per course, right? And but again, it has to go along with the requirement, the scheme requirement, as what I have shown. So with the basic degree or diploma, then you have the subsequent requirement to fulfill it.
Okay, I think we take another one more last question. This is from Hilmi. Is the certification is paid or free for plantation in Malaysia? Is it free or is it
Okay, the question is, this certification is paid or free for plantation in Malaysia for its recruitment. Okay, what do you call the certification has to be paid by the standard user, the company who's adopting this standard. Yeah, it's not free because we are engaging with third-party auditors. So the company has to pay the third-party auditors in order for the audits to be credible and credible, yeah, and accountable.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's all our question from now. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Simon Salvaraj for sharing very informative information about MPOCC certifications. So this is very important for University Putra Malaysia student because we have a Bachelor Science in Plantation Management. So I think before they go to the industry, to the plantations for practicals, at least they have idea about what is MSPO, how do the certification is being carried out. Thank you once again, Mr. Simons, and also MPOCC. So before that, I would like to share. There's another next week. Next week on the 9th of June. Can you all see my slide? I hope. Mr. Simon, can you see slide? My screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is MPOCC also webinar series with UPM. Next week on 9 June, Wednesday, same time, Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council to get to know the strategy behind the establishment of MPOCC and its role to uphold and execute MSPO. So the esteemed speaker will be Mr. Hasbollah Suparyono, Senior Manager in Strategic Management for MPOCC. So I will share the link later so that all of you can join. Yeah. Before that, the link for the e-certificates I already shared in the chat box. I think. Do you mind taking another one last questions, Mr. Simon?
Yes, sure, no problem.
Okay, this is from Mark Oi. How does a company obtain the certification? It needs to fulfill all the criteria first, or it can commit first and get the certifications?
Okay, it's a tough questions. Anyway, it goes back to the auditors. The auditor has to check on the depending on the commitment by the company. For example, if you have any what you call ACV or biodiversity areas that they need to commit in terms of preserving it, and then it costs a lot of for the conservation and all that. So it may come in a few months later or even years later. That has to be recorded into from their management review, all right, which has to be committed by the top management, and it has to be captured in their management review, and it has to be transparent and evaluated by the CB, the auditor. It's very subjective, but in case of MSPO scheme, yes, you need to fulfill everything before it gets certified.
Right. Okay. You hope this will answer. Thank you very much for all of those who asked questions, who would like to share. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Simon, once again. Okay, hope to see you again in our next. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Doctor.
So,
thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, right? So stay safe.
Thank you so much. Bye.
The link of this for the e-certificates is in the chat box. Next week, okay, this is our seminar for next week.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. So the video recording, I will share to all the participants who registered. Yeah, who registered.
Doctor, is that the same link for the next webinar?
Yes, the same link. I will.
All right.
Okay, I will rewrite the previous
Okay.
link and share again.
Okay, alright. So we can share this lah. The
Yes,
poster.
Can.
Okay,
Please
thank.
do so. Thank you so
Alright,
much.
thank you so much for today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Mahir, for helping us in organizing.
No problem.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, we'll see you again next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Semua dah dapat link ke? Dah dapat klik on the e-certificate link? I share again.
Dapat. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right, okay.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor.
All right, thank you.
Doctor,
Yeah, Arif.
can I think I need I have a suggestion lah, Doctor.
Apa?
I think I have a suggestion lah.
Okay.
Suggestion.
Okay.
So right now, Doctor focusing in oil pump, right?
Yes.
Okay. Boleh. Is that okay after this? We try to go to another
Crop.
another tajuk about rubber.
Oh,
We
yeah,
can
sure.
invite LGM.
Yes,
for sure.
sure. Yes. Of course. Actually, the reason for this webinar, this series webinar, actually for this SST 4602, Plantation Management and Plantation Sustainability and Quality Management. It's a new course in UPM lah, so I invite all the memang experience and expert in this topics to talk about MPOCC, talk about certifications and also quality.
Okay.
Boleh.
Because
kita.
we know that oil pump right now very good lah in Malaysia, but maybe too slow for the rubber.
Sure. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
we invite. Don't worry. Thank you for the suggestions. Yeah, we look into it. Don't worry. Thanks, Arif. Okay lah, I stop share je lah. Alright.